everyone. James and I are going to speak about the research and the management we've been doing in the feral pig space across the Otways. We've really been focused on that over the last 3 years when an injection of funding came through the Wild Otways initiative, and that really enabled us to get our teeth stuck into it to make an impact for what was really required towards feral pigs. So I'm going to start off talking about the past, so what we've done in the last 3 years, and then James is going to talk about what we're doing in the future, or the project that we're working on at the moment now that the Wild Otways has finished up. So through the Wild Otways initiative, we had the aims to gather as much intelligence as we could to better understand the feral pigs and how they're using the landscape in the Otways, because as we all know, the landscape, it's varied through the Otways. It's a patchwork of management areas, difficult terrain, the topography changes right across the landscape. So we really need to understand how these feral pigs are using these different areas of the Otways, so we can target those locations and work out where they're moving and what resources they're taking advantage of. And that was all to build more effective and efficient management. So we worked hard to sort of refine our management practices over those last 3 years. There was work done previously through Parks Victoria and CEC in collaboration, and they really got the ball rolling. We already had traps in place and different things like that we could work with, but we really wanted to refine those and better understand the feral pigs and change those techniques to adapt as we learn more, kind of thing. And the other key aim was to significantly reduce the populations of feral pigs in the key focal areas that we were working on. There was 3 key focal areas across the Otways, and we managed to reduce the populations in those and expand as the time went on as well. So we covered a bit more area than what we first expected. And the big one that Mark and Barb have really hammered home today too is the community engagement and education side of things. We held a number of workshops throughout the Otways with the community, so they better understand the impacts and the management techniques that are available for them to actually be effective, instead of going towards sort of ground shooting that might seem quick and easy. You want to try and do trapping and baiting to get the whole mob. And really worked closely with land managers as well, Parks Victoria and DECA, Midway, Bar and Water. We've collaborated and really sort of got the ball rolling in that space too, so we can all be working towards the same goal. So our methods, with the intelligence side of things, we were using GPS tracking collars, which you can see fitted to a couple of feral pigs here. And that was to really understand how they are using the different landscapes and traversing through it, but how they're interacting with other populations of feral pigs too, especially the male boars. We wanted to understand sort of how they're moving with the use of the GPS tracking collars, and we had them set to get activity data, but also location data every hour while they were active on the feral pig. So we could undertake further analysis and understand their home range. We used camera grids, so through those 3 key focal areas, we deployed camera grids. Throughout those, we tried various spacings to understand how detectable the feral pigs are out there, but they also gave us a great insight into the feral pigs. So this is a handful of photos coming up here that the camera grids captured, and it enabled. It sort of went on to the management side of things. It gave us the insight into what individuals are out there, and we could identify between the different individuals and know once we'd removed them and dispatch them out of the system. So it came really handy in that sense to sort of analyse, to get density data, but also to inform management once we undertook the control phase. Other things we did were impact assessments, infrared aerial surveys, and eDNA waterway sampling. I won't focus too much on those because we found that for our purposes, GPS tracking collars and camera monitoring grids worked really well and gave us a lot of data. We would love to do more impact assessments. That's a really important thing that we want to focus on. We trialled one method throughout this project, but we want to try more as well and increase our knowledge around that so we can monitor the impacts post-control, pre and post-control, and know that, yes, we have removed this number of pigs, but also the impacts have decreased as well. So that's really important. The management tools that we were using, so thorough monitoring and surveillance, that has been the key for us. Doing those camera grids beforehand and understanding that we have removed a number of feral pigs out of that population, and then we can reinstate that camera grid after the control's taken place and know that we have removed that and had the impact on their population, reduced that. That's been really important, and the surveillance side of things. So when I'm talking monitoring, I'm meaning more sort of camera grid, something that you can extrapolate data from, and the surveillance is more ad hoc monitoring with cameras placed out through the landscape that are just there to detect presence of feral pigs and progress to the control phase. So that's been really important, just being so thorough with that and understanding what's out there before progressing to that control phase and deploying a trap or a bait station. You can see the remotely operated traps that we're using up the top there. That function, having the remote operated function and being able to view that live stream of the feral pigs when you get to that control phase has been so important. And understanding how they're acting around that trap that you put in the landscape. Some are very nervous for a start, and then you adapt your feed regime to suit them, and they're all different. They keep us on our toes all the time. There's always something that surprises us, but it's just important to adapt. Those hog eyes with the live view have been really important, and being able to drop that trap when we know the whole cohort of feral pigs are in that trap. We might be monitoring 10 feral pigs. We wait until those 10 feral pigs are in that trap, and then we drop the gate and get them all at once. So it takes time, but it has been really effective as well. And the sodium nitrite bait, we've used that as well on certain occasions. We've sort of leaned heavily on the trapping, but sodium nitrite bait's a great tool as well, and it's really good for backup. To have those different integrated techniques is amazing. And the community engagement, as I said, the workshops, we've had workshops with the land managers and also feral scan information sessions with the community to get people reporting feral pig sightings more often, so we can keep on top of it. And we can understand, like, we might be focused on one area, but all of a sudden there's sightings in another area that we weren't even aware about. So we built that bigger picture of the sort of distribution of the feral pigs across the Otways and got a better understanding of that. So to our findings with the camera, the GPS tracking collars, the males move a lot greater distances than the females. So they really, their home range is dictated on their resources and also the female populations that are in the area as well. We've got a very small sample size to work with, so we can't generalise it across the whole of the Otways in terms of feral pigs, but we're understanding a lot more than what we did in the last sort of 3 years of how they're using those landscapes and how far they're actually moving. So you can see the males on average was 1,493 hectares, and the females were 170 hectares, which is great from a management perspective because generally when you detect the sows in the landscape, you know they're going to be in that area, and they're highly detectable and easy to sort of keep track of in a way. Whereas the boars, they tend to move much further in between other populations, but you're normally going to see them at that same location down the track again. So they tend to revisit sites quite often. And that's just from what we've seen so far. that gives you a bit more of an understanding. We've had 11 individuals collared so far. The blue are the males and the purple are the females. So it gives you an understanding of the different, how they move differently through different landscapes. So in the northern Otways, the males have had a much greater home range compared to, say, down in the southern Otways, which is much smaller. And maybe the resources are better down in the southern Otways compared to the northern Otways, or maybe there's more populations of sows that the pigs travel between. There's different factors that can influence that. But it's really interesting to see that they do. It's important to understand the different landscapes and not just sort of assume that they're doing the same thing across the whole Otways. So we would love to get more GPS tracking collars on in the future too. Another benefit from the GPS tracking collars has been the home range analysis that we've undertaken. You can see in the green there, that's the extent of the home range, and the red is really the core areas of the home range. So that's where they spend most of the time in the red areas. You can see on the red crosses, that's where this is an example of one of the collared boars, and the red crosses is control sites or sites where we've detected other populations of pigs. So you can understand that he's actually going and visiting those other populations while he's being collared. So it's really interesting to see, and we do a lot of groundwork after we get a live feed basically of this GPS data while it's out there, which is awesome. So we're always out there following up on sites he's been to see if there's sign of other pigs and to establish control sites. So it's working really well. Camera monitoring grids. We trialled different spacings, as I mentioned before, and in different landscapes. But the good thing about feral pigs, they seem to be highly detectable with the cameras, and 80% of the time they were detected within 30 days. So it sort of really guides us for how long we'll put our camera grids out for in the long run. So we might go 40 days or something like that in different landscapes. So it's been interesting data to have. And we also did some density estimates too. So in the blue is 2021, that's pre-control, and in the red is 2022 post-control. Is that 10 minutes? The camera grids. So at 3 of our camera grid sites, we had a great reduction in population density. So 98% at one, 100% reduction at the other, and 89% at the third one. So these techniques that we're using are working really well, but it takes a lot of effort. And the camera grids, they're quite big too. So 1,200 hectares and 2,200 hectares were our bigger camera grids. And as I mentioned, we've been sort of relying on the trapping more. So 96% of our feral pigs have been controlled using the trapping, but baiting has been awesome too. And ground shooting is just a secondary measure, but we'd always go for trapping or baiting first to get the whole mob. I better wrap up and I'll pass over to James so he can get some time in as well.
I'll try and keep this quick. Good morning, everyone. Thanks to Tim for the really informative summary of the pig project over the last 3 years. Now, you may be wondering, with the Wild Otways initiative finishing up, what is feral pig management going to look like in the Otways and where do we go from here? Due to the control undertaken during the initiative, feral pig populations are much lower than they were 3 years ago. But we're beginning to see an increase of feral pig activity in spots that are outside of our focal areas. It is now more important than ever that this work continues, especially with adequate resourcing behind it. If this doesn't happen, it's inevitable that the pig populations will reach and exceed their previous numbers. Fortunately, through the Otways Biodiversity Protection Program, which is funded through DECA and delivered by Parks Victoria, we have managed to secure funding for one full-time position to continue managing a feral pig program. However, this means that we are operating at a significantly lower capacity than we previously were. The funding is essentially the bare minimum required to try and stay on top of feral pigs across the landscape as large and diverse as the Otways. So, in the meantime, our operational priorities have to shift. We're continuing to have a strong focus on stakeholder engagement and collaboration to further build on established relationships and create new ones, particularly with land managers, community, and industry. As a key part to this, we've developed a shared map between the Conservation Ecology Centre, DECA, and Parks Victoria, using an app called Field Maps, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. This app allows you to upload monitoring sites, trap sites, damage reports, pig sightings, etc. in real time to a shared map. We've also established a WhatsApp group between these orgs to allow for quick and easy communication, which is really essential when it comes to things like trapping. The combination of these two shared interfaces aims to ensure clear communication and will be crucial in the future to developing a landscape scale strategy. Unfortunately, there's no quick, easy solution to managing feral pigs. The management techniques that Tim alluded to before require a significant amount of time, effort, and persistence, along with dedicated teams of people working towards the same goal. The collaborations we're building upon during this project is a step in the right direction, but we really hope for substantial funding to help build capacity and give feral pig management in the Otways the focus it needs to be effective in the long term. I look forward to letting you all know how we go at the forum next year. Thanks.